Ask yourself, what if you're actually successful in solving whatever the problem you're trying to solve? God forbid you're actually successful. Would it help 1 billion people live a better life?
What would happen if we just told the truth?
Welcome to TruthWorks, where we dig into the nitty-gritty of leadership and work.
And what needs to change? I'm Jessica Neal.
And I'm Patty McCord.
Our journey together started in HR, but trust us, it's evolved into something wild, honest, and, well, a bit rebellious.
So throw out the handbook. We're here to redefine rules to work for us, not against us.
Let's dive into another episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TruthWorks. I'm your host, Jessica Neal, and I have a special guest here today. I'm so excited. I think, first of all, we were just chatting, and I think his energy and our energy together is going to be unmatched in this podcast. But I have Naveen Jain, and I don't know if any of you know anything about him, but he is a serial entrepreneur. He has so much experience and is actually, I don't know even what you're doing right now. I want you to explain it to me because I think you're trying to get people on the moon is what I understand. And you're the CEO of Moon Express, and you've had other companies. You have done TED Talks. You know, one of my friends, Bose, and I'm just so excited to have you on the show. So welcome, Naveen, and tell us about you and your story. And are you really trying to get people to be on the moon? Is that what you're doing?
So first of all, Jessica, what an honor and a pleasure to be with you. And I'm not going to talk about myself because I'm going to focus on talking about the people who are listening to us and giving us something that is most valuable to them, which is their time. So let us focus on what can we do to add the most amount of value to our audience here. So right now, this decade of my life, I am focused on one thing and one thing only, which is how do we get people to stay healthy and how do we get people to find the joy and happiness in their life. And my goal is to eliminate illness so that every single day when you wake up, you don't wake up in any type of pain, any type of suffering. And how can we make illness optional? What can we do with our diet, with our nutrition to be able to completely eliminate all types of chronic diseases? And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how my journey in this world started. From mining the moon for helium-3 to creating a fusion reactors to all types of things. And here I am now focusing this decade of my life on chronic illness and how to understand human biology and how to keep the our fellow humans healthy.
So was there, what set you on this mission? Was there something that happened?
Yes. I mean, always, every journey in life, it starts because you care about it. And I really think this is something that I want people to start to pay attention to it. In life, whatever you do cannot be for simply about making money. So every time I start any company, any project, and I want people to pay attention to it, you ask yourself 3 basic questions. Why this? Why now? And why me? Why this is really, really simple. Ask yourself, what if you're actually successful in solving whatever the problem you're trying to solve? God forbid you're actually successful. Would it help 1 billion people live a better life? And it's not because you're a philanthropic person. It is because you're a capitalistic person that sees any product, any service that can improve the lives of 1 billion people, you can create a $100 billion company. But making money is simply a byproduct of doing things that improve people's lives. But you can never wake up in the morning and say, what should I do to create $100 billion company? It comes automatically when you wake up every day and say, what can I do to improve someone's lives? In other words, making money is like having an orgasm. If you focus on it, you're never going to get it. So just enjoy the process.
Probably true. Probably true.
Probably true.
Yeah.
Now, The second part of it really is making sure that things you're trying to do are right timing. And the way you see the right timing is look at what changed in the last couple of years. And I think, Jessica, we're going to get back to you and I'm going to interview you because Netflix did exactly the same thing. What was the thing that made Netflix successful? It wasn't something they said, oh, we can create a media company. They looked at the things and say, hey, there is a massive shift that is happening. The massive shift is changing. And in the next 3 to 5 years, more and more people are going to have a broadband access. And what if we can change so people can get the media at their home rather than have to go somewhere, get something, forget it and pay the late fees. And here you are stuck with all these things. What if we could actually do a streaming media that actually the cost of delivery is zero. You don't have to pay the mails and stuff. And that is what made the Netflix a Netflix today, because they were able to see what was changing and what were expected to be changing in the 3 to 5 years. And they went ahead of what was possible 3 to 5 years later. And this is the beauty. So the timing is about what changed, but more importantly, what do you expect to change in the next 3 to 5 years that will allow you to solve the problem at scale in 3 to 5 years. And this problem could not have been solved a decade ago. That means you never focus on saying, oh, this could have been done 10 years ago. The point is, if this could have been done 10 years ago, you're already way too behind. So you really want to intercept what is going to happen, not what is already has happened. And this is why the great companies are created. So if you look at almost every company, they are able to intercept the changes in the technology. They're able to foresee what was happening and get ahead of it. So by the time the technology is there, they're already at the level of scaling, not level of starting a company today. And that is really the beauty of how things get done. Now, the last part is the most important part, which is why me. That means what questions are you asking that are different from what everyone else in the industry is asking? And that means the questions you asked are the problem you solve. So what questions would you ask? And generally, everyone who is an expert tend to ask very similar questions because their expertise, their knowledge allows them to think they know the basics and the foundation. And they all end up becoming the group thinking. And whereas someone else comes from outside the industry, rethinks the problem, redefines the problem, and it changes the solutions available to them. So for example, if you say, hey, there are 8 billion people on planet Earth today, what if there were 20 billion people? How would we solve world hunger? And every single expert will tell you, you have to grow more food. You have to reduce the wastage in transportation because that's how the food gets wasted. But nobody will ask a question, why do we eat food? Because when you ask, why do we eat food, you realize it's about more energy and nutrition. What other different ways can you get energy? What are the different ways you can get nutrition? And suddenly you wide open the problem to the solutions that would have never even come about if you were simply thinking about how to grow more food. Right. And this is the beauty of, and the second part of why me, which is what I reason I wanted to get back here was, it needs to be personal to you. You have to ask yourself, what are you willing to die for? And then live for it. And that means, what is it one thing you're willing to dedicate 10, 15 years of your life to solving that is so important to you that you're willing to cross every hurdle gets in your way? You're going to go over the wall, under the wall, around the wall because you care enough about solving this problem. Now, to answer your question, here I was. Working on a company called Moon Express. We became the first company ever to get a permission to leave Earth orbit. President Obama signed into the law that says anything we mine and bring back, we get to own it, not the country. And then we became one of the 6 companies to get $2.6 billion NASA contract.
Yeah, crazy.
And I was on the top of the moon. And then my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And
I'm sorry.
I didn't even know he was sick, let alone he had stage 4 cancer. He was given 3 months to live, and unfortunately, that's all he got. And it really shocked me that here I'm thinking that we can colonize the moon and a Mars, and then here we have our loved ones suffering, and we have no idea they're getting sick. So my first shock was, oh my God, why can't we detect these cancers early? And then I said, wait a sec, it wasn't about cancer. I took it for granted that as he was getting old, of course he's got diabetes. He's taking a metformin. Of course he's got a heart disease. He's taking his statin. Of course he's got a high blood pressure. He's got to be taking his medicine. That we just assume that as people are getting older, they just have to get these diseases and you give them the medicine and that's just part of life. And then it occurred to me that there's nothing, at least from what I understand, human biology that has a clock. Say you turn 40, now you have this disease, you turn 45, you have this disease, and turn 50, you have this disease. And I'm thinking, what if? And all great problems start with what if. I say, what if we can actually understand? Because at the end of the day, our body is simply biochemical reactions that are happening in the body. And there are hundreds of millions of biochemical reactions happening. What if we can actually measure what is going on inside the body and then use AI to find a solution of what's causing people to develop diabetes, obesity, depression, anxiety, cancer, Alzheimer, Parkinson's, or even fatigue, whatever that is. What is it that's changing in the human biology? If we can find it, we can diagnose them early. We can actually prevent them from happening and, God forbid, outright reverse them. And that's like, my God, if we could do that, that's an amazing thing that happened. And the reason I focused on chronic diseases rather than infectious diseases, so despite the pandemic that we saw, we as humans, human species, have really in the last 40, 50 years since the invention of antibiotics, really don't die from infectious diseases. This is once in 100 years pandemic we get. Most people are suffering from these chronic diseases. And in fact, 90% of our healthcare dollars are spent in really managing these chronic diseases. And my first thing was, you don't wake up one day and say, you know what, honey, I was hanging out with the boys last night. I think I might have caught diabetes. Right? You don't catch diabetes. It takes you 8, 10, 15 years where you slowly start developing diabetes. You slowly start developing a heart disease, right? So this is not something happen overnight. That means there are plenty of signals in the human body you should be able to detect. And that was fundamentally what I set out to do. And this is now applying back the framework that I told you. Why this? Why now? Why me? So I'm going to apply this framework. So here
I was going to ask.
Yeah. So here I said, look, what if we can actually solve this problem where we understand the human body at a biochemical level, and we can now diagnose these diseases early, prevent them from happening, and actually potentially reverse them? Would it help 1 billion people live a better life? The answer is 8 billion of us. Check mark that one. Great. Love it. Second part, why now? And I said, look, to solve this problem, there are 3 things have to happen. You have to be able to digitize the human body. Cost of digitization is really coming down really fast. It used to be millions of dollars. When I started the company, it was thousands of dollars. And then I thought in the 3 to 5 years, it will come down to $100. And today it is down to under $10. Cost of processing this information, we knew it is going to be a massive amount of data. When it used to be thousands of dollars, it became hundreds of dollars, and today it's under $1. Right? So it is really, we knew that it was plummeting, and we knew that AI is going to be actually becoming more and more powerful. So if we could start something, this problem could get solved. The next part was, why me? So I said, look, everyone in this industry is asking the same question, which is, I want to know about your DNA, your genes. Everyone wanted to know about your DNA. And I am not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. And my first reaction was, this is good, but does your DNA actually change when you develop these diseases? So you do my DNA test today. I gain 200 pounds. Has my DNA changed? Answer is no. Then I become diabetic. Has my DNA changed? No. I get depression. I get anxiety. Do my DNA test? It's still the same. Then I get heart disease. No change. Then I die. 100 years after I die, you do my DNA test again. is still the same. We still look at the DNA of mummies and dinosaurs, right?
Right.
So if DNA can't even tell you you're dead or alive, how will it ever tell you you're becoming healthier or sicker? Right? So my
Yeah.
first reaction was, wait a sec, then what does change in the body? Something has to be changing. Well, it turns out it's not your DNA, it's your RNA, your gene expression. Your genes are the same, but what they're expressing is always changing. And not being completely naive, I don't understand what this RNA means. But my first reaction was, hey, if that's what's changing, why can't we just measure that thing, whatever that thing is?
Right. Yeah. They can measure it. Yeah.
Let's go measure that damn thing. And everybody's like looked at me and said, this guy obviously doesn't know it. You can't measure that. It's, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, don't tell me it can't be measured. Just tell me, what if I can do that? Would it solve the problem? And they say, kind of. What do you mean, kind of? What's the next problem? Well, 89% of all the genes that are expressed in our body don't come from our mom and dad. It's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, really. So where are they coming from? Well, turns out there are 100 trillion microbes that live in our gut, in our mouth, and all over us. These microbiome, gut microbiome, oral microbiome, skin microbiome, everything, 100 trillion of them. And they produce somewhere between 2 million to 20 million genes compared to only 22,000 protein coding genes in the human DNA. So 99.9% of these microbes, my first reaction was, why do we care? It doesn't matter. And I then think, okay, fine, let me go do some research. So I went to Dr. Google and I say, Parkinson's and microbiome. Here are 20 papers that says how microbiome actually causes these diseases. And by the way, Parkinson's starts in the gut 10 to 15 years before you see the first symptom. I'm thinking that's just abnormal. How about Alzheimer? What about diabetes, depression, obesity? And turns out every single thing, including cancer, is now connected to this microbiome thing. And they are talking about how even cancer therapy. So they did the research where they took the people who had cancer and they gave them the immunotherapy. It worked for 1/3 of the people, didn't work for 2/3 of the people, and then they changed their gut microbiome for the 2/3 of the people who it did not work. And suddenly the therapy started working. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this is unbelievable. Now, my next reaction was, wait a sec. If everyone believes this microbiome thing is so important, and there are tens of companies doing microbiome testing, then why is this problem not solved yet? And then I went back and said, what questions are these microbiome companies asking? And turns out they're doing exactly the same mistake the DNA companies did. They're doing the DNA of the microbiome, and they're telling you, Jessica, you have this organism called C. diff. You have this organism called Akkermansia. You have this organism called this. And my first reaction was, look, I don't know what these organisms means. In my mind, like you, maybe they're tiny, tiny humans in my body. And I'm thinking, wait a sec, if they're tiny humans, it doesn't matter whether they call Jessica or Paul or Naman or Naveen. What matters is what they are doing. Because the same human being in a good environment will have a good behavior, in the bad environment will have bad behavior. So if the organisms are doing the same thing, we should focus not on who they are, we should focus on what they are doing and how it is impacting the human body. And that is what everyone is missing out on. So what if we can focus on understanding what these microbiome is expressing, how it impacts the human immune system, human body, then we can solve this problem. Now I think, okay, I got this thing right. I know. Now, this is where the why me was most important, because I am thinking from a non-expert perspective.
Yeah, you're not a scientist. You're not a doctor.
That's it. Simple problem. Now, all I have to do was find a way to solve this problem. And I'm thinking this is the easiest problem. NASA JPL is sending these rovers to Mars looking for life. They have to have figured this thing out. So I am not like out there at the NASA JPL in Pasadena talking to the director. Guys, tell me what technology you guys have that is going to the Mars looking for this life on Mars. I want to understand that. And can I use this technology to solve the problem I'm trying to solve? They look at me and say, We have no idea because we don't look for any of these organisms. There is nothing there. We're simply trying to find any sign of life that used to exist in the past. And I'm thinking, what a bunch of morons. I need to go to the NASA headquarters. I've got to go to Houston. Houston, we have a problem.
Right.
So I went to Houston and they said, well, you can play with the moon rocks. You can do whatever you want, but we don't know what you're talking about. And I'm thinking, wait a second, forget this thing. I'm going to go to Stanford, MIT, Duke, and I'm going to every university looking for someone who helps me do it. No luck. I'm at now Lawrence Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore, and I'm like, God, somebody had to have solved this problem. And then I found myself at Los Alamos National Lab. Now, you know what that is famous for, right?
No, I don't know if I do.
Atomic bomb.
Well, okay. Yeah. Now I know.
It was called Manhattan Project, and most people think it was done in Manhattan. It wasn't in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It was Los Alamos National Lab, right? Now, what do you think they're working on next? They were working on biological weapons and biological defense.
Right.
And so here I am describing this problem to them, what I want to do. And there's one scientist who says, I know exactly what to do. And I shake my head and like, really? I ask him, what project are you working on? And he looks at me and he says, what's your security clearance level? And before I could answer, he says, don't bother answering me that, because even if you told me you work at CIA, I can tell you your security clearance level is not high enough for me to tell you what project I'm working on. So being naive, I said, what kind of security clearance level do I need for this? And he said, that itself needs a security clearance. And it's like, okay.
Right.
And I said, okay. Now, I am thinking this guy just completely BSing me because he has no idea what he's talking about. So I told him, I said, look, don't need to know what project you're working on. Now, I'm going to give you some lessons of life. In case you forget, I am a US citizen. Every single dime of money that you're investing in this research is coming out of my taxpayer dollars. I have every right to know how you're solving this problem. I don't need to know the project you're working on, but that you cannot tell me how to do it. And he said, that's fair. And he describes to me how he has solved this problem. I don't understand, but I'm really good note taker. So I'm taking all the notes. I wrote it down and I said, thank you very much. And I came out and I went to Lawrence Berkeley and I went to the scientists and I said, guess what? I have solved the problem. And they all look at me and say, you have solved the problem. I say, yep. First you do this. And then I describe to them everything that you do to solve this problem. They pondered and they say, you know what? I think if you can do that, this will absolutely work. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Went back. And now someday I will give you a longer story. If somebody who is a brown color immigrant in this country who cannot figure out what they're working on, managed to get an exclusive perpetual license to the technology, hired that guy who is my chief science officer.
Good for you.
And then I hired the head of IBM Watson Research to do all the AI work for me. And this is what became Viome, right? So these guys have figured out how to do this. And the problem they were trying to solve was very simple. If there was ever any type of biological terror in our great country, how would we protect ourselves? And the way we protect is we couldn't care what was in the biological weapon. We care more about how it is impacting the human body so we can create the antidote for it. And that's literally, I thought, was the same problem that I was trying to solve. 8 years later, Jessica, here we are. We have now done 1.5 million tests, collected over 400 quadrillion biological data points. When you do a test, you give us a spit of your saliva. You give us a finger prick blood, 4 drops of your finger prick blood, and a touch of your stool. And we analyze 100 million biochemical reactions. And then we tell you everything that's happening in your body, from your biological age to your cognitive health, to your oral health, to your heart health, to your gut health, to your immune health. And if you want to be nerdy with me, we got the nerdy stuff for you. Your LPS production to your uremic toxin production to your homocysteine. We got everything for you. And then we say, Jessica, you shouldn't be eating avocado right now because your uric acid production is very high. If you keep eating avocado, which is high in uric acid, you're going to end up developing a gout. And here's a science paper if you want to learn more about it.
That's
Don't
crazy.
don't eat broccoli or cabbage right now because your sulfide production is too high, is going to end up causing more inflammation. And here's a science paper for it.
Right. But as you were describing, like these things are in your body, but they're changing all the time. So like
Yeah,
today it may not be
yeah,
don't eat avocado, and tomorrow it might be don't eat
it
broccoli.
doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't happen that way. So it actually, so I'm going to explain to you. So what happens is your microbiome cannot change right anything instantly. And here's why. These microbes, 100 trillion of them, actually are tens of thousands of different of these organisms in as one ecosystem. In that ecosystem, one organism digests the food and releases something else. Other organisms take what they get from that and they process it and release something else. So this ecosystem remains in balance. If you let's assume one organism says, "You just ate a different food right now, I'm going to change what I do," the whole ecosystem falls apart. And energetically, that is extremely expensive for organism to change how to express something different. So what happens is, unless you take antibiotics or you completely change your diet, you only ate vegetables and now you suddenly only ate meat for the next 3 months, then your body will change. If you keep eating a similar food that you are eating, it takes 6 months before your actually organisms change any meaningful way. And that's
Okay.
why we tell people to retest after 6 months, right?
Okay. So like every 6 months.
Every 6 months, right? So now we
Okay.
tell you what foods you should eat, why you should eat them, and a science paper for it. Don't eat these food, here's why, and the science paper. And then we go and tell you, hey, your risk of developing high blood pressure is now going up because of these things we are seeing. And here is what you need to do is to eat these foods. Don't eat these foods to minimize that risk. But in addition to these foods, you also need 2 milligram of vitamin B. You need this vitamin D. You also need 33 milligram of elderberry. Make 22 milligram of lycopene. Make sure you take 79 milligram of amylase. And we walk you through every vitamin, mineral, herbs, digestive enzyme, amino acid, food extract. We tell you what you need, and then we custom formulate that for each individual every month. So every month you get this thing made just for you and says manufactured on. It was made for me 10 days ago. Every month I
Okay.
get the new one made for me. So it measures my everything in my wearable, my Apple Health thing. So you say, hey, Naveen, you're not sleeping well. Guess what? I'm going to change your supplement and I'm going to change your diet so you can sleep better. I notice you're working out a lot and doing strength training. I'm going to add more in your supplement. I'm going to put more branched-chain amino acid. I'm going to change your diet to include more protein. I notice you're doing a lot of aerobics right now. Guess what? I'm going to change your calories. I'm going to change your supplement so you can go do that. So it's constantly adapting and changing as your body is changing. We give you the personalized probiotics and prebiotics made for you for your gut. We do it for your oral microbiome, these oral lozenges made for you.
Okay.
And then we make the personalized toothpaste for morning and evening just for you. Morning completely different and the evening.
Why?
It is based on your oral microbiome because your oral microbial activity directly contributes to diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer, cancer, and many other diseases. Because remember, when you have inflammation in your gum, in your mouth, your microbes now, the bacteria are going into your blood because now you have a leaky gums, just like a leaky gut. And then you have all the inflammation that causing your body to be sick,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
So now, the interesting thing is, Jessica, people ask me, does it work? So we did the double-blinded placebo-controlled studies,
Okay.
just like the drugs. And we
Right.
showed in 90 days, not in 9 years, In 90 days, if you're pre-diabetic, your HbA1c came down by 0.42, 90 days, and you became healthy. People who had IBS, like constipation, stomach ache, that thing, 15% of the population suffers from it. In 90 days, 64% of the people became healthy compared to 10% on placebo. People who had anxiety, 50% of the people became healthy compared to 28% on placebo. This is all with food and supplements. That's it, right? And then
That's
we published the
fascinating.
paper, time 1, time 2. Every single person who did did the test, took our supplements and did the retest. And we see from diabetes to IBS to depression to anxiety, everyone improved by more than 30% in 120 days to 180 days.
That's fascinating. And then, well, speaking of data, I mean, you must have so much data too, just based on from your customers.
So that's basically, so from the data that we have, now we are able to diagnose early stage cancer. So we have a test now for detecting stage 1 oral cancer, stage 1 throat cancer. So think about that. Today, the only way to detect oral cancer is when you go to a dentist, you notice they rub the finger on your gum.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing? They're detecting your
Checking.
cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer. So
Yeah,
in
with their
the
finger.
20, with a finger, on 21st century, when you can land on the moon, we are feeling our cancer. So we built a test, we took it to FDA, got FDA Breakthrough Device designation, and we can detect stage 1 cancer with 95% specificity and 90% sensitivity. Oral cancer, throat cancer. Now, this is the most satisfying thing. In the next 3 months, we are launching the first ever test for detecting stage 1 pancreatic cancer.
And that's a big one.
You know why? No one has ever, pancreatic cancer is always found in stage 3 and 4 because there are no symptoms. Steve Jobs died from it, and every one of
My
us
grandfather died from it.
And it is deadly cancer. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So by the way, so within the next 3 to 4 months, you will see a test that will detect stage 1 pancreatic cancer with 94% specificity and 84% sensitivity.
Wow.
Game changer.
Yeah.
We have same test now for IBD. We are doing it for colon polyps, not colon cancer, colon polyps, which is 7 to 10 years before you develop a cancer. And Scripps Research is currently validating our test. And if that comes out, the colon cancer will be completely gone. So you're asking me, why do I get so excited?
Yeah, well, I would get excited too. And I'm excited. I mean, why you is because you. Yeah, you need to be doing this. So the answer was you. So I'm glad. I'm so happy about your framework, but I'm also just really happy that you're helping the world get better, right? And I'm gonna go do I haven't done the test because I was reading about
that.
I should, but
Jessica,
I don't know.
I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? Because at the end of the day, you could do anything you want. You are a legend in your industry, right? No, seriously, you are. I mean, Jessica, you are a legend. You built Netflix culture. I mean, that is what makes Netflix what it is. Now, you could do anything in the world. And think about it. What you're doing, you're helping millions of people with inspiring content so they can change their life. So what is yours? Why you?
I think that is why me. I'm on this mission people spend a lot of time at work and I want to help them work better, and I want to help the world of work be more effective and efficient. And I think that just like there are diseases that plague humans, there are diseases that plague organizations, and I am on a mission to get rid of them.
My God. Look, honestly, should be your tagline. What if? Imagine a world where there is no illness at work. The work is no longer toxic. Work is actually fun. I mean, Jessica, you and I are the same thing. I am, by the way, 66 years old now, right? This is my 7th venture, and knock on plastic, every single one I have done so far has been very successful. I don't have to do a thing for a living. And I work 16-hour days, 7 days a week, because I believe this is my duty to my fellow humans. Because, I came to the United States with nothing. When we were growing up in India, we were poor. We had no food to eat. We had no place to stay. I came to this country with $5. And imagine how much I have received if I don't pay my debt back to the society, someday I have to answer to some supreme power. What did I do for my fellow humans? And this is the reason I do what I do, is can I actually do something for my human species, my fellow humans, to actually for them to do good for their own species?
Yeah. Well, you know who I think is really proud of you? Your
My
dad.
dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Yes. I know he's looking down on you and he's just smiling. So, and I'm proud of you. That mattered.
I'm proud of you, Jessica. That's
Thank you. Thank you. Well, listen, I want to switch from
okay.
us humans
Sure.
being, diseased, but we're not going to be anymore with your products and your research. But you're a leader, and we talk a lot about leadership on this podcast. I think you gave great advice for founders, if your framework and why me. But what is your advice to just leaders in companies, and how are you thinking about? I think that you just mentioned some of the folks that you hired, right? And they're out of the box thinkers. But a lot of times as you're scaling and you're growing and you're hiring people that may be conforming, may not be pushing, may not be innovating. So how do you build a culture of innovation in your companies?
I think the thing is, when you hire someone, you have to ask every single person in the company, why are they joining this company? Are they joining this company because they feel it's another job, or do they really believe in the mission? And this is really the key to success for a leader is. So the difference between a leader of an organization, a company, and a cult leader is really, really simple. When you start a company, people join you because they believe in you. And to become a great leader, you have to switch the loyalty from yourself to the mission and the cause. The mission and cause must go on even without you. That means every person who is joining comes there because they believe the illness can be optional. So when they join our company, they believe in that mission. And when you believe in a mission, and my only question I ask people is, if you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning and you're not jumping out of the bed, then you should quit what you're doing, including the job at Viome. So even if you are here and you're not excited enough to jump out of the bed every single day, ask me. I promise you to find you a job somewhere else where that you will find that joy and happiness, because you shouldn't be in any place unless you really have that desire, the happiness and joy that comes from solving whatever problem you're solving. So if you're not mission oriented, you end up finding people who are not rowing in the same direction. And Jessica, this is, most people don't know your story. You built that culture where people took accountability for their own action. They became leader because they believed in the mission that Netflix had. So how did you do that? I mean, I want to ask you.
Well, no, I mean, I thought about it a very similar way that you think about it. I think when we were hiring, I wanted people that were drooling to solve the problems. They couldn't stop thinking about it. They were so excited about it. And it didn't have to be like that they were working on, the personalization engine for
Yeah,
streaming.
yeah.
It could have been anything in the organization, but that problem, whatever problem it was in the business, they wanted to solve it and they couldn't wait to solve it. And I do agree with you. If people aren't excited about what they're doing every day, it's really hard to get up in the morning and go to work. The other thing that I think helps, which we focused a lot on, was surrounding them with other people who were the same way, no
Yeah,
matter
yeah,
what it
yeah,
was, whether, it was doing stuff in the HR team, doing stuff in the
yeah,
product team, doing
yeah.
stuff in the marketing team. You were surrounded by people that really cared about what they did and really cared about making a contribution, and also were good humans. You hire good humans, and then it's fun to come to work.
And this, that's the part I don't understand, to be honest with you. This post-COVID, people say, I don't want to come to work. I want to work remotely. I mean, wait a sec. it used to be the part where you work, your people around you were your family because you enjoyed working with them so much. This
Yeah.
became the friends. I still have friends from the last 30 years, people I worked with. We go out and hang out together because we became such good friends, right?
Yeah. Some of my best friends
Yeah,
are
from work.
folks that I worked with. Yes. Yes.
Exactly my point. So I really think this, when you find yourself surrounded by everyone who are loving their work because they find joy and happiness in doing whatever they're doing, whether it happens to be marketing or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They're excited about solving the problem. Guess what happens? It is contagious. You want to be part of that energy. And you don't want any apple who is kind of rotten and sucking that energy out. You want that apple out of the company as soon as possible.
Couldn't agree more. And we were very aggressive about that too. Like whenever we made a mistake, which we often did because it's humans hiring humans, we were aggressive about saying goodbye, but doing it in the most respectful way. And I think, even if, I don't know, I think there, as leaders, we need to take a lot of the shame out of leaving work and like getting let go. I don't like calling it termination or fire because it just sounds so severe. Like it wasn't you're going to go off
It's
and be
not the
great
right
somewhere else.
opportunity. And my point, I helped
Yeah,
them
let's
find
be
something else that they would love.
exactly. And let's be a great place to be from. Right.
Yes.
Because, if you have Netflix on your resume, even if you were there for a very short amount of time, guess what? People really
Want
to talk to you, and want to hire you. Right. Exactly. So we are running out of time, which is really sad because I've
we
loved
just
this.
started.
I know, but I always ask for, and I know you're going to leave us with something good because I always ask our guests to leave our listeners with something, some advice, some inspiration, something to go away and think about. What is it that you want to leave us with today?
I mean, I would say, dream really, really big. Dream so big that people think you are absolutely crazy, right? That means, see, this is a problem I want to solve that sounds crazy on the surface, but what if we can actually solve that? So dream really big and never be afraid to fail because you never fail. You only fail when you give up. Everything else is simply an experiment for you to learn something from. And everything in life you do is simply has outcome A and B, and don't assign them success or failure. When outcome A happens, you do C and D. When outcome B happens, you do E and F. So there is no success and failure. It is simply outcomes. And just keep pushing forward because every step gives you some new learning. So the only time you fail in life is when you give up. So just don't give up.
Don't give up. I love that. And you know what? I have a 6-year-old son and we talk a lot about, I'm like, he just started Taekwondo and like literally one class. And he was like, Mom, I want the black belt. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay. And he's like, can you just buy me one on Amazon? And I was like, no, I can't. That is giving up. I cannot buy you a black. You have to earn the black belt. If you want the black belt, baby, I want you to get it, go for it, but you got to earn it. You got to learn it. You can't just buy a black belt, right? But don't give up. It's amazing. You're amazing, Naveen. I'm so glad you came on the show. And I'm going to go take the test, even though I'm slightly scared to take the test.
You would love it. I mean, you would absolutely love it. It's called Viome Full Body Intelligence Test, and it will completely change your life.
Okay. I'm going to take it. And I'm not going to be scared of what I'll learn because...
By the way, there's no scarcity. You are where you are and all you can be is better. You can only improve things that you measure. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can improve it. Okay, very true. Again, thank you so much. If I could hug you, I would. Yay! And please come back on the show because we loved having you. I promise you. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Truth Works.